Okay, welcome everyone. Today is February 9th. Thank you so much for coming. This is the Brand Power Hour, which is my free community where I come in and do trainings on brand building, but also invite guest experts like Nina that come in to talk about different topics. So thank you all for being here today. Before I pass the baton to Nina, I just want to welcome you all and also do a little housekeeping. So today we're talking about legacy content, but I also have another Brand Power Hour next week, another one. They're back to back, which I would love for you guys to come to as well. I'm putting in the chat. This is with Nicole Kepik, who is an amazing sales page copywriter. I think you know Nicole, right, Nina? Like you guys.
I do. Yeah.
Small
So
world.
crazy.
Yeah. But she's actually up in Canada and she's one of my mastermind clients. And she's talking about sales page, 10 tips for writing unforgettable sales page. And she's actually so brilliant in her approach. I love, she has like the non-sleazy approach to selling. So highly recommend that you guys join for that. I've been through that presentation before and it just has a ton of like really good actionable tips on how to improve your copywriting. So definitely join us for that. Oh, somebody's here. I don't see them. Oh, here they are. Okay, let me admit that person. Okay, so today we are talking about legacy content with Nina, and Nina is an SEO expert. She's a visibility enthusiast with over 15 years of digital marketing experience. So anytime I hear SEO, I always start sweating. I never really get a good grasp of it, even though I try to, but I know how important it is. So I'm so happy that she's here. She is passionate about helping business owners elevate their visibility with smart SEO strategies. She is a corporate dropout, multi-six-figure business owner, and mom living on the southern coast of Maine, so a fellow Mainer. And I am going to put in her website information after in a second, but I want to make sure that you guys all connect with her because she has a membership which is dedicated to SEO, helping you build visibility, where she gives so much content, so many trainings. So highly recommend checking that out as well. But thank you so much, Nina, for being here and sharing your expertise with my community.
Yay. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm really, really excited. I love to chat about SEO, so I'm ready. Okay. You ready for me to share?
Yes. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay. So today we are going to talk about one very sort of specific facet of SEO, and that's the legacy content piece. And obviously this doesn't, oh my Lord, okay, encompass all the different elements of SEO, but one that I think is often overlooked and is really important and can be really advantageous as you are building out your businesses or growing your businesses, trying to elevate your visibility online, etc. So yeah, we're going to talk about all the good things, legacy content and holistic SEO. So first things first, I know that everybody knows what SEO is, right? But I always like to start with just breaking it down into its simplest form, baby form, that SEO is the optimization of your website and content for better search visibility, increased web traffic, all of the things, right? You have something that people are looking for, and SEO is sort of that connector, which we're going to talk about next. But really at its core, SEO is about satisfying a user need. It gets a really, really bad rap for being technical because there are some technical components of it, like making sure that your website loads quickly and things like that. But really, really at its core, it's about people. And I think when you come at it from that lens and put the technical stuff sort of in its own separate box, it starts to become a little bit more approachable. And SEO is a bridge. It is a bridge that connects your website's content or your podcast or your YouTube channel with the user's question or need, right? Somebody out there has an event planning need, or they're looking to organize their life or get in shape, and you have content that satisfies that user need. SEO bridges the gap between your content and that person. And so I really like to think of SEO as a connector and as a bridge, because that's really what it does. And I think it takes the sort of the scaries out of SEO. It's one of those topics that there's a lot of gatekeeping around. And of course, if you're like a big e-commerce site or you're Amazon or something like that, SEO is kind of this technical mammoth. But for most of us, who are either coaches or service providers or have small businesses. Website is this really, really cool thing that we can leverage to expand our visibility in many different ways. And Mallika, do you want me to answer questions as we go? I'm happy to do that. Or I don't know. Yeah.
If you don't mind, that I can manage the chat. And so
Perfect.
or I'll stop you or I'll have whoever asked the question. That's awesome.
Beautiful. Okay, now I need to use my little whoop, whoop, whoop. So why is SEO still important? Why does it still matter? So this is a question I get asked a lot, especially with the rise of platforms like TikTok and things like that. So I just wanted to throw this in here really quick. There are 8.5 billion global searches on Google a day. It still has 92.2% of the global search share. I think it's about 85% in the US. Bing has a little bit stronger search share in the US than it does globally. 99,000 searches every single second, right? Most of which Google has never seen before, as a side note. So people are searching for exactly what you have to offer. They just don't know that you exist yet. So there are so many people talking about different social media platforms and all of these different things. And those are really important. But something that I want you to keep in mind is outside of Instagram, Google indexes every single one of those platforms. So Pinterest, which is its own search engine in of itself, right? But those get indexed by Google. TikTok videos are indexed by Google. YouTube videos are indexed by Google. Podcast episodes are indexed by Google, right? So Google kind of hits people at almost every single stage of the funnel, right? Everything from top of funnel, discovery, looking for information, all the way down to the point where they purchase something or book a consult or a photography session, whatever it may be. Google is able to hit users at multiple stages, whereas other platforms like social media or TikTok hit people at certain stages in the funnel, right? TikTok is very much a discovery platform, cold discovery, et cetera. It's really great for getting in front of a lot of people quickly, whereas Instagram is more of a nurture platform. Not to say that people aren't finding you, right, on those platforms, but Google really hits people at every single stage, or can potentially hit people at every single stage. So that's something that I think is important to keep in mind, because a lot of people are like, wow, I don't really think SEO matters anymore. And I'm like, but it does. And it's definitely changed, right? From 15 years ago when I started in SEO versus when SEO started, in the mid 90s to where we are now. But the core components haven't really changed. And so what does legacy content sort of have to do with SEO? So legacy content is essentially content that is on a legacy platform. So video, audio, podcasting really, or written, right? And creating content for SEO is a lot of work. I'm not ever going to be that person who's like, it's so easy, just write all of these 2,000 word blog posts. It's simple. But all of that work that you are putting into creating SEO content can work so much harder for you, right? So legacy content is really about flipping the script and turning one piece of amazing visibility focused content into several pieces of content across multiple platforms, right? That are anchored by a keyword. And the beautiful thing about SEO in 2023, even though Instagram and TikTok and YouTube aren't really using traditional SEO like we would be doing for Google, they are pulling in elements of SEO, right? Pinterest is the same too, because Pinterest is really a search engine. So you have an opportunity to create content that's anchored in something people are actually searching for to create visibility expansiveness, right? It's not just a blog post that's going to be indexed and found on Google. It's multiple pins. It's that carousel post. It's that TikTok. It's that reel. Maybe you turn that blog post into a podcast episode or vice versa, right? Legacy content is really content that's going to work for you over the long haul. It's evergreen content, kind of like with a glow up. So that's a really good way to think of it. Most people know about evergreen content. Legacy content is evergreen content with a glow up.
Do you mean when you say legacy content, Nina, is it like, it's like repurposing content is another way to look at it?
Kind of. So legacy content is content that's either going to live on YouTube, in a podcast, or like website content, like a blog posts. So basically legacy content is content that's timeless. It's essentially evergreen content.
Got it.
But the difference sort of with how I talk about it is that instead of just keeping that one blog post on your website, and it'll work hard for you, right? That compounds over time. If you take that anchored in what people are searching for and repurpose it across multiple platforms, it just creates that much more visibility for you around that core term or topic and gives you additional opportunities to get in front of people. Any other questions? I'm going to stop right there.
Yeah, there was a question in the chat from Chitra. She asked, you mentioned website loading time. What's considered a good time for a good load time for a website?
Anything under a second. It needs to be fast. Most websites don't load that quickly. You know, if you're using like Squarespace or Show It or anything like that, most of those platforms are built to be inherently speedy, you know, in 2023 out of the box. I would just make sure that you're not using like huge images, or a lot of people love to use video on their home pages, but it can also slow your site down. So you kind of have to be mindful. If there's a place where you should really focus in terms of page load time, it would be for mobile devices. There's a place in your Google Analytics that you can take a look at that. If we have time after, I'm happy to hop into analytics and we can take a look at that. You can also use a tool like gtmetrics.com and put your website URL in, and it will run a page load time report for you and give you recommendations on what you need to do to help improve your page speed. Probably one of the more technical parts of SEO, but some things like compressing image size and things like that you can do with like an app on Shopify or WordPress, etc. Anything else?
Nope, I think that's it. And I just put in that website to share with everyone.
Perfect. And anything, yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Mallika. Okay, so how do we do this, right? We start with legacy content. So it will be the foundation for which all of your other content is built from, obviously. And like we talked about, it's going to be based on either a video, audio, or text, like a blog post, etc. So, and the key to creating this type of content, like we talked about, is anchoring it with a keyword that people are actually searching for and that's not time sensitive. So, you know, if you're writing about, you know, something that just happened, like a news, or, you know, Beyonce's really expensive concert tickets or whatever it might be that's kind of trending right now, that wouldn't necessarily be a good topic. But something like, you know, what does a business coach do? That's a topic that people are going to search for, you know, potentially indefinitely. So those are the types of topics to think about when it comes to creating content like this that can be repurposed. And of course, all content can be repurposed, but really with the legacy content lens. So the number one thing that I get asked about is, how do you find these keywords? And how do you find topics? And of course, we could do like an entire like half-day workshop just on conducting keyword research. But I do want to talk about a few things to look for. And if anybody's currently using keyword research tools, pop that in the chat. I would love to know what you're using. And I might even switch screens and go into like a keyword research tool if you guys actually want to see it in action. But when you are looking at keyword research, let's say you're using a tool like Ubersuggest, which is a pretty inexpensive monthly fee. I think it's like $24 a month. Or if you're running Google ads, you have access to Google Keyword Planner. Look for long tail keywords. Long tail keywords are keywords that have lower search volume and lower competition. So it's something called keyword difficulty. So basically, how hard is it going to be to rank on that term? You want to look for keywords that have low competition, low keyword search volume, because you're going to be able to rank on those more easily. Now, once in a while, you'll get a unicorn keyword that has high search volume, but low competition. Those are beautiful. I love when we find those for clients, because it means that it's just, yeah, they're going to get that much more exposure because it's a high search volume term, but there aren't a lot of people or competition on it. So I'm just going to stop and look in the chat. Okay, yeah. So we will go into SEMrush to do this. So Mallika, I'm just going to stop sharing and then reshare.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'd love to see a demo also.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super visual, so it's like I understand needing to. I don't even know what I just did with my Canva, but here we go. Hang on.
So question for you, like random question, I guess, maybe not.
Yeah.
So, but like, if you hired a copywriter, do copywriters know this stuff, like the SEO stuff, or do you need to hire an SEO specialist and a copywriter?
I mean, I think that a lot of copywriters that I'm seeing now are definitely utilizing SEO. I think it depends on how well they know SEO, how well they know the space. You know, a lot of people say they do SEO, but they don't really do SEO. Like, so I think it really depends. My advice would be to work with somebody and it depends on your space, but I would work with, like, if you hired an SEO person, they work in conjunction with your copywriter, kind of like when you hire a website designer. A lot of website designers say, hey, we take SEO into consideration.
Yeah.
A lot of designers don't really, right? So it's always good, I think, to sort of bring the two together. But then there are copywriters who do know a ton about SEO. I think it really just depends.
Okay. But it's a good question to ask.
Absolutely.
If you're hiring a copywriter, right?
Absolutely.
And not assume that they know how to do it. And then you're disappointed that it's beautiful copy, but it's not getting you anywhere.
Exactly. And some copy, like, one thing to keep in mind, not all copy needs to be SEO centric copy, right? It's not going to be. You're going to have sales copy, you're going to have nurture copy, you're going to have like your funnel copy. Not all of that content that you're creating needs to be SEO centric, but the content that you do want to rank should be really strategic. So that's sort of where the keywords and things come in. So I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see, where did my little bar go here? You would think that I would be like technically savvy, but I'm really just not. There we go. There it is. Okay. So we're going to go through. So this tool, can everybody see this? It says keyword magic tool.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, perfect. So, so we're going to go through. So this is the tool. This is SEMrush. This is one of the more expensive, like, SEO platforms. It's more than just an SEO platform. It's really what I would call like a digital marketing platform, but SEO is a core component. So let's just throw in some keywords. I think somebody had put something in, like, vintage wedding dresses. Was that one? Am I imagining that?
So Christine does, she's a wedding designer and she redesigns like vintage dresses, like wedding dresses.
Okay. So, right here, so we're going to see a ton of keywords, right? Because that's a pretty broad term. So this column right here indicates keyword intent. And there are 4 different types of keyword intent plus a bonus intent, but the 4 types are informational, commercial, navigational, and transactional. Informational is exactly what it sounds like. Somebody is looking for information or an answer to a question. Commercial is people are looking to investigate different brands, right? Like the best running shoes for women, for example. And then transactional, again, exactly how it sounds. Somebody is ready to purchase. So, like, for example, you can see here for this keyword, vintage puff sleeve wedding dress, that has a transactional intent and an informational intent, right? And then the 4th is navigational. So somebody types in Facebook website, which is one of the most searched keywords on Google. They're looking to navigate directly to the Facebook site. And then the bonus is local. So if you are a business with a local presence, let's say you have a brick and mortar, or you're a photographer who serves a specific geolocation, you would be using keywords like photographer near me or wedding dresses near me, things like that. Most keyword research tools do not include the localized intent. It's kind of just, it's based on where the user is physically located and on their phone, right? But you can kind of suss those out by, like, best pizza near me, things like that. So here we have search volume. This is based right now on the United States. You can adjust most keyword research tools to be specific to your area, though I always like to look at the US as a whole, or whatever market I'm doing research for. And then the keyword difficulty is right here. This metric is a little bit different in each platform, but the end result is essentially the same. How hard is it going to be to rank on this term? For SEMrush, it's a 0 to 100 metric. The lower the number, the easier it is to rank. So this right here would be a perfect example of a long tail keyword. 170 average monthly searches, but a low keyword difficulty, right? And long tail doesn't necessarily mean that it has a lot of terms within the search query. It just means that it has lower volume and lower competition. This is actually like one of those leaning toward more unicorn long tail keywords, because that search volume is pretty decent for a long tail. Another example would be like vintage silk wedding dress, 260 average monthly searches, a keyword difficulty of 23. And of course, again, there's a lot of search volume around just that term itself. If you're somebody who designs them, you know, you might want to get more specific. So we specify it more. Obviously, we start to get a little bit limited in what there is, right? So vintage designer wedding dress, designer vintage wedding dress designers. That has 140 average monthly searches, but it's a fairly competitive term. So you can start to see, you would probably need, well, this will tell you, but you'll need a lot of referring domains, meaning other websites that link back to yours that are high quality, a lot of content, a robust site, etc. So really going back to that original term, vintage wedding dress, and focusing on keywords in the green would be where to start. That was a lot of information, so I'm going to pause.
Does anyone have any questions? I mean, this is kind of helpful to see like behind the scenes of what it actually looks like for me. But this is a paid service.
This is paid. Yeah, you can do a free trial. So if you're interested and you know what your core topics are and your content pillars are, you can do the free trial and, you know, take advantage of the keyword research tool and download.
Are there any free resources that kind of give you an idea of keywords?
I actually have. I will share it with you guys. I'll share it at the end, or Mallika, you can send it out to the group. I have a free, like, it's just a PDF with 7 free keyword research tools with the links, and I'll share that with you guys. And those are all free and actually pretty robust. Excuse me. You might not get the keyword difficulty, but you'll definitely get search volume, etc. So I'll share that with your group.
So when you find these keywords, that then you need to make sure it's in your copy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk about that next. Yeah. So let's go back to the presentation. Let's see. Okay, so we found our keywords. I had given these examples, but I much rather like the real examples. So then you need to create content that people want, right? So one of the things that's really important when you're creating content, specifically with SEO in mind, is that Google cares about you in terms of the content creation. They recently updated their algorithm with something called the helpful content update, because people were creating content for SEO just to rank. So for example, let's say you're, I don't know, let's say you're a business coach, just to go with that. But all of a sudden you start talking about, like, I don't know, occupational therapy. That's an extreme example, right? You're not an occupational therapist. That's not your core expertise, but you start blogging about it and talking about it because for some reason you're like, ooh, a lot of my people are into this topic. I'm going to create content just to drive traffic to my website. Google doesn't want you to do that. And after that helpful content update, they updated another core part of their algorithm, which was called EAT, for expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, but they added an additional E for experience. So experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. They want to know that you're hitting all 4 of those, right? So kind of like for me, I'm an SEO and digital marketing expert, but I'm not all of a sudden going to start talking about, you know, legal advice, right? Google knows that my experience and expertise and authority are tied into my SEO experience, etc. So writing about something that I don't really know about, they're going to know that. So my website's going to reflect that, all of those things. So when you're thinking about the content and the keywords that you're going to target, make sure that it hits these 4 areas. And sometimes that's easier, right? Like if you're a vintage wedding dress designer, that's what you do and that's what you're going to talk about, right? And there's so many different things that you could blog about. History of wedding dresses, you know, the most famous vintage wedding dress designs. Like there's so many different things and they all relate back to your core expertise, right? So one of the things that I would really like strongly urge you to think about, because this is something that my clients get stuck on a lot, is I need to create so much new content. I'm running out of ideas. Everything that you're creating when it comes to SEO content should be relating back to your core expertise in some way, shape, or form. So in the wedding dress example, right, everything that you're writing about, your blogs, they're all different topics, but they're all about wedding dresses or the wedding dress industry, right? They all relate back to your core expertise as a wedding dress designer. Same if you're like a brand strategist, right? You're creating all of this amazing content about the different things components of your brand strategy and all of that, but they all relate back to that core expertise. This is called like a content pillar strategy, really. And I highly recommend thinking about, okay, what is a wedding dress designer? Okay, that's one piece of content. And then underneath that, you can talk about, the different types of wedding dress designers. There's like boho and vintage and modern. And then you can talk about, specifically vintage wedding dress designers and the process of taking an existing dress and turning it into something new and all of that. Same, but different, but similar, right? And they all relate back to that core expertise.
So I have a question for you, Nina. So
Yeah.
Melissa, who's here, she does event planning.
Mhm.
So obviously events, but some of her partners might be floral or catering or
Yep.
venues. So there's kind of outside of the area of expertise, but connected to her area of expertise.
Yep, absolutely.
How would that work?
Yeah, so you could talk about like, the top 5 ways to use floral arrangements for your next event.
So just always tying it back to
always tying it back.
Got it.
Exactly. Like, and you can even talk about specific events. Like, I don't know what kind of events like she focuses on, but let's say it's like, I don't know.
It's remarriage.
Okay, so there you go. Like the top 5, must-have menu items for your, like those types of things, you can talk about it, but it always ties back to that core expertise of, I am an expert event planner for this specific niche. This is what I'm talking about for floral arrangements or music or things like that, so you can always tie it back.
So, I mean, I love the whole niche thing. That's what I'm obsessed with. But so I would think that the more niche you get, the more your SEO might help you rank higher because you're so narrow and focused.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
It can, absolutely. Like the more specific you're getting with the keyword, as long as there's search volume, right? And keep in mind too, Google isn't only going to rank you for that one exact match term, right? It's going to rank you like, perfect example is like how to fry an egg. There's probably 100 different ways you could type that into a search engine, right? But the content that answers that question best is going to get ranked to all those different iterations. So yes, you can absolutely, niching down can absolutely be beneficial in terms of SEO because you start to become the expert, right? Like the dominator in that space. And the more content that you create about that topic that's similar, but not the same, the more authority and trust and expertise you have in the eyes of Google, and that elevates your rankings.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So like part of my platform is like about sustainability because you're reimagining vintage and using dead stock. So like if I started talking about, not using paper and plastic at your wedding, isn't that going to confuse Google? Like if I start talking or flowers, like compostable florists or whatever, is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing. So if I were creating a piece of content about that, I would probably have an intro a paragraph that talks about sustainability as it relates back to wedding dresses specifically. And then you could be like, if this is a topic that's important to you for your wedding, here are my 5 tips on how to extend sustainability for your wedding beyond just your wedding dress. So you can still tie it back to the element of your expertise as a wedding dress designer, but this is how you can take that cool element of sustainability with you reusing vintage dresses and apply it to your wedding in these ways too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. But but I guess my question is like, Google doesn't read those keywords, like they don't see silverware and then they get confused because I'm not talking about clothing.
No, so so when you have, and we'll talk about this in a couple of slides. So the bots, so you're going to indicate to Google what your target keyword is. So let's say your target keyword was how to have a sustainable wedding. Let's just say that that's as the example. That's going to be used strategically throughout your content in the meta title, in the meta description, in the actual title of the blog post, which is your H1. And then you're going to use it naturally, and it doesn't have to be the exact match, right? Naturally throughout the content. So when the bots come and hit the page, they crawl top to bottom. They're going to see that title tag in the source code and be like, oh, this is about sustainable weddings. And then they're going to read down and understand that you're writing about sustainability in weddings, but because you're a wedding dress designer and the whole like tenet is like you have a whole thing about sustainability, etc., they're not going to get confused by that. They're going to know that this is about, and because you're in the wedding space, I don't think it would dock you in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Yeah. So they look for, they have very specific ways, the bots, of understanding what a piece of content is about. Anything else before we go on?
Nothing in the chat, but does anyone else have any questions in the here? I don't see any.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Melanie has a question.
Go for it.
So, hi. This is great. This is great. And of course, my landline does this every time I speak, and I don't know how to shut it off. I'm sorry. I'll just take a minute. It's a telemarketer. So I'm a writer, and I'm one of those writers who doesn't have a great grasp on SEO, but I listen, I read, I learn. I took a course on SEO last week. So when you said about, finding your niche and making yourself become an expert and getting out there and saying it as many times as you can in as many ways, I feel like if I say the same thing too much, people are just going to go, yeah, and start to recite my tips themselves. So I'm really careful to not do it too much. And now I'm wondering, I know everybody doesn't read everything, and if they do, they just skim. But so how do you put that balance where you feel like you're repeating yourself?
So when we get into the repurposing section, I think that will give you a little bit more clarity. But the whole, like when you're thinking about the long form content though, and when you have that anchor keyword, the content should be different. It should be unique, right? Like, for example, everything I write about pretty much on my website is, or I talk about my podcast is about SEO or digital marketing, but they're all different topics, right? So you can write about the same thing. It's just about having different keywords related to the same topic to write unique copy about. So even though it all relates back to that core expertise, it shouldn't be repetitive. There is going to be some overlap. You might say some of the same things in some of the content. I talk about certain things, on repeat in my blog posts. Legacy content is one of them. But I don't think it feels too repetitive, because people need to have interaction with something multiple times for it to click. And if you're doing it, if you're crafting your content in a way that, it's 90% unique, that's not going to hurt you in terms of the eyes of the search engines either, right? So I wouldn't worry about that too much as long as the content that you're creating is mapped to a unique keyword each time. And then you can, create the content centered around that. And hopefully that helps with that feeling of, repetitiveness.
Thanks.
And this is where like keyword research, and it takes time, right? To sort of suss out these topics and pull and extract them. Answer the Public is a really great place to start. Something I just shared on Instagram, like type in, actually, we're going to do this real quick. Hang on, because I think that this is useful. Can you guys see Google?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. We're going to just go with this because this is what. So if you go down, and it might not be here for this. Yes. Okay. So see this, people also ask. This is a really great way to sort of get your brain thinking about what should I even be writing about. So right here, what is considered a vintage wedding dress? What can you do with a 40-year-old wedding dress? Can older brides wear a wedding dress? And then you open this up, right? And there are even more down here. What color dress should an older bride wear? Granted, that's not necessarily related, but like open up this, what can you do with a 40-year-old wedding dress? And then it kind of, how much does it cost to redo an old wedding dress? You know, you start to see. So like, if you're feeling like you're kind of in a content idea slump and you're like, I keep on coming up with ideas that feel too similar, pop your ideas into Google and utilize that people also ask, because this is based on the most common questions and themes that Google is seeing. So they've already done the heavy lifting for you and created this, and you can open each one up and get some really good ideas. So if you're feeling like, I don't know what to write about, I always like to start here and then do my keyword research, because this is just like a free idea generator right here. I mean, right here too, what to do with your old wedding dress, 10 sustainable ideas, you know? So, lots of ideas. So that's something to try too.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great tip. I must have seen it, but I didn't really see it. Now I'm seeing it like with fresh eyes.
It helps sometimes. You just got to walk through it, right? So, okay. So experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. Okay. So on page optimization. So, depending on what platform you're using, all of them have some sort of like SEO element. Squarespace, Showit, WordPress, Wix, they all have a place where you can put in the SEO. So for the page title in that like little SEO section, if you're using Yoast, it's going to be like the SEO title. When you scroll down, you're going to put your target keyword. Sometimes it's going to be the name of the blog post if it's short. Sometimes it's going to be different than the name of the blog post. So in this instance here, 3 SEO tips for female solopreneurs, SEO tips for female solopreneurs is the keyword that I'm targeting, but I did include the 3 because that's the entire blog post title. Brand name automatically appends. You can do that or not do that. I like to do it so people get that brand recognition when they see it in the search engine results. And then underneath here is where you're going to put the meta description. And this is just where it's like a hook, right? It's like a elevator speech for your content to get people to click over. It's about 155 characters. You want to include the terms that you're targeting because they will get bolded by Google, as you can see here. And this is not anything that users see on page. This is only what they're going to see in the search engine results page. And this right here is probably the number one on-page signal to Google in terms of what your content is about. So it's really important to make sure that that's optimized. I'm also a big fan, I think I mentioned before, of getting the keyword into the first 100 words of your content, because the bots do crawl top to bottom. John Mueller at Google confirmed that is important at the end of last year. So that made me happy, because that's an old school tactic that I've been preaching about forever, but it really does matter because they need that understanding and context right out of the gate. The other thing that I will say is really important, aside from using the keyword strategically throughout, use headings. Users love headings. It breaks up long copy blocks. Search engines like it too, because it can help them understand the structure of the blog post. Make sure you're linking out to other places on your website from your blog post. This is something a lot of people miss sometimes. How Google understands what your website is about is by crawling the links, right? They come to your homepage, they follow the links, and then the links, and then the links, right? That's how they understand what each page is, and how your website is structured. So a good rule of thumb is 2 internal links per blog post. It can be to your email sign up. It can be to your services page, a freebie, another blog post that's relevant to that one, etc. But getting that interlinking is really, really important, because if the bots come to your site and all they have to click on are footer links, they're probably going to stop crawling and they won't crawl the rest of your site. So you want to make sure that you give them lots of opportunity in a way that feels natural and not forced to find other pieces of content on your website.
Okay, can you just say that again? Because I feel like that was like really important information, especially for those who do blog posts. So 2 internal links within the blog post, meaning sending it to another place on the website or another blog post or to a freebie.
Yep. It's in the freebie blog post template that you're going to share with the group. It's exactly in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So other pages on your website that make sense. And don't be afraid to send people to your about page. Your about page is actually is a very underutilized, can be SEO goldmine, right? So like on my about page, I'm targeting SEO expert for women, I think, or something like that. I don't remember exactly. That can be really, 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 really valuable. So don't be afraid, to optimize your about page from an SEO perspective, but also to send people there to learn more about you.
Anybody have any questions?
External links are good too. I just saw, yes. So where it makes sense, I like to say one external link, 2 per post, but it doesn't always make sense to send people off site. If you are, it should be worth, always have it open in a new tab. Don't, get them off your site completely, and have it something be super valuable. Like, you have to listen to this podcast episode, or this book changed my life, or this resource is really, really amazing. Have it be something that you really, really believe in, that's worth interrupting a user's time on your site for, and that's also bringing value. But yes, external links are important too. It's a good question. Okay. Click here. Okay, so now that you've created your legacy content, let's talk a little bit about repurposing it with purpose, though, with SEO purpose, right? So I said in the very beginning that platforms like Instagram and TikTok have really sort of embraced certain elements of SEO, not true SEO. A lot of people talk about TikTok SEO. What it really is contextual keyword targeting, right? Google's algorithm, as you can probably tell, has like 200 plus different components in it. There's a lot of trust signals and authority signals. TikTok and Instagram don't have any of those, but what they do have is keyword targeting, right? So like if somebody types in, brand strategist into Instagram or brand strategy tips into TikTok, the keywords that you're using in your pieces of content will get mapped to those searches, right? That's how those platforms are using it. So that's where the visibility piece comes in. And then for Pinterest is a search engine, and same for YouTube, right? So you can use the same keywords that you're targeting in that legacy piece of content on those other platforms. Real simple way to do this is, let's say you have a blog post, identify those 3 to 5 high level takeaways, the most important takeaways from that post, and then plus 1 juicy quote, right? Always pull a quote, something that will perk people's ears up, or maybe that's even a little bit polarizing or whatever, depending on your topic. Those tidbits are going to become the meat of your content repurposing strategy. So using a podcast episode as an example, I did a podcast on 6 e-commerce SEO tips for small businesses. And I had like 3 to 5 high level takeaways, like know your metrics, listen to the experts that you hire, do not make assumptions, having a fast page speed is vital, don't forget about mobile. And then the quote that I pulled out of that is pretty isn't always profitable. Little like side note here, this was basically, aside from the quote, my show notes. So you know how you have show notes, and in this episode, that's basically there. So I didn't have to even recreate anything new. It was work that I'd already done because it was a podcast episode. Usually for a blog post, it's going to be like your overarching like headings, right, for each of your paragraphs, depending on what you're talking about. And then from there, you can create a carousel post with the top 3 to 5 takeaways, single image post with the quote, carousel post with the quote if you wanted, Pinterest pin for each of those takeaways, plus 1 general pin that's targeting this, the 6 e-commerce tips. You can repurpose, which I did. I repurposed the podcast episode into a blog post. You can create an IG reel if you're into reels. You can do TikTok. You could even repurpose your podcast onto YouTube, either from the recording of when you did the podcast or create a new video. There's a ton. I mean, this is 3, 6, at least 10 pieces of content right here. And they're all talking about essentially the same thing, but in a slightly different way, right? And so you don't have to do all of these, right? That's a lot of repurposing. If you wanted to, you could, but pick 3 to 5 or 1 to 2, or pick one platform that you like to show up on. Maybe you just like to show up on Instagram. It doesn't have to be all of these. This is just sort of showing the possibilities. of what you can do with one piece of content, right? One piece of SEO centric content. And then when somebody types in e-commerce SEO tips into Instagram or Pinterest, etc., it gives you additional opportunity to show up, right? You don't just have one blog post, you have a podcast episode, you have a blog, you have Pinterest pins. If you are on TikTok, Google will pull those in too. Plus you'll be able to be found on TikTok. It just really creates multiple opportunities to be found for the same thing. And the secret sauce, which you guys probably have all figured out by now, is anchoring all of it with a keyword. So that's really, really the important thing. Not every single piece of content you're going to repurpose on social media and other platforms is going to have this, right? Sometimes you're just repurposing something really awesome, and that's great. But when you are repurposing legacy content from an SEO lens, anchor it with the keyword. That is really where that magic happens and creates that expansiveness. Yeah, and that is the bulk of it, but I'm happy to go into, if you guys want to go through. I know Mallika has a giveaway too, so
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
yeah.
Yes, I have a giveaway, guys. I have a planner here from Savor Beauty. I don't know if you know them. It's Angela Gia Kim, who's a business coach. It's a cool like self-care plus business planner. My coach, Jessica Miller, swears by these. So I bought a few of them for my clients and for giveaways. So what should the question be, Nina? What should...
Oh, oh, that's tough. I should have thought about this when we were talking about it before. Okay, what are the 3 different platforms for legacy content? Or 3 different types of legacy content, I guess I should say.
All right, put it in the chat. I don't even know the answer, which is so sad. Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, Melissa got it.
Melissa got it. Yeah. Melissa, you'll have to send me your address so I can send it to you. Awesome. Yes, awesome. Thank you. I mean, I feel like I'm slowly getting the grasp of SEO, but it definitely, I know it's so necessary. I just read something recently on, someone said, I spent the time doing SEO properly for my website, for my blog, and versus spending money on Facebook ads. Yep. And I was able to like get to the same result.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yes, you're spending money either way, especially if you're going to hire an expert like Nina to do it for you. But like, you don't have to just do Facebook ads. There are other ways to gain traction, to get people into your funnel, to get on that on-page optimization. And like, you can't ignore, I feel like for a long time I've been ignoring SEO and I can't ignore it anymore. So
yeah, I think with Facebook ads, having been in the space since Facebook ads started, Facebook ads is you're going to spend money and not necessarily know what that money's doing. Unless you're an e-com product where you can have a direct conversion, like, you know, point of click to sale, which even then it's not complete because the way that Google and Facebook communicate is not an absolute. It's really hard to get an ROI on that, right? So like, it surprises me like Facebook ads are so popular. Like Google ads, I would probably put more money into than Facebook ads if I had to pick, just because you can anchor it with a search. Like you can put in all those keywords that we were just talking about and bid on those, and you can like you have a more transparency. But absolutely, like I just onboarded a client yesterday and we were looking at her analytics. I'm like, oh, this keyword you're ranking for really well and it has a ton of search volume. She's like, oh, I wrote that blog post years ago. And it's driving a ton of traffic. She's an e-commerce site and it's people order off of it, right? And so I think that thinking about where do I want my business to be in 5 years? Do I still want to be spending money on Facebook ads in 5 years? Maybe, but you also want to have a foundation where people can find you that doesn't involve spending money, you know? And so I think like that's the big thing is this is an opportunity to create visibility that compounds over time. It is not a quick fix. Sometimes you get lucky and you're like, ooh, you know, I had a done for you client in December who's e-com and we got lucky, you know, but it usually takes time. But like, if you think about all of the things that we do for our businesses, this is absolutely one of them that you can baby step, incremental each month. And 3 years down the line, 2 years from down the line, it's going to have such a big impact for your business.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Who has questions? Who's already doing SEO like this?
Oh, yeah.
Keywords. Okay, Christine is yes. Anyone
Yeah.
else?
Can I ask
Wait.
a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I just launched an Etsy site on Monday. I'm curious, like if I have my blog go to my Etsy site, is that spammy or is that okay?
Like selling product, like, hey,
Yeah, or like if I'm talking about buying a dress that's like how do you choose a dress that's unaltered? Like, and I talk about that and then I say I have some on my Etsy site, or I don't know.
yeah, definitely send them to your Etsy
Okay.
site.
I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
know if that was like a red flag. Right.
That's the external link that you can
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in Google's eyes, exactly, you're giving that link to Etsy, and that's not a bad thing. Plus you're sending people over to your storefront there. So definitely.
Thanks.
So what would be a good like next step for all of us now that we're sort of understanding SEO, we understand the importance of the keyword? Is it like the next piece of content that we have to write for our blogs to really do the research to pull together a list of keywords?
Yeah. So I would start like like small and be like, okay, I want to write about X topic. Spend some time before you start writing, doing some keyword research on either a paid or free tool, just to get an idea of what people are actually searching for related to that topic. And then like using the blog post template, outline it, map it out, and kind of see where you're at and be like, okay, so, and then come up with your title after. I always like to have the title come after you've actually written the content, but always include that target keyword. But yeah, if you want to start with SEO and you're creating content, absolutely do keyword research around a topic that you're interested in. And you'll probably find like, oh, there's like 4 or 5 different topics that I could write about right here, right? Kind of going back to that content pillar strategy. Like for example, I have an e-com client, but they have a blog and they sell like running shoes and stuff, marathon training. That's one topic, but then you can write about marathon gear checklist, the best winter marathon training gear, how to train for a marathon in 10 weeks. Like you can literally come up with 20 different topics, because the keyword research, like you pop that in, you're like, oh, there's so many different things we can write about related to this one thing. So that's where I would start with one of like your core content pillars or a broad topic related to your business and expertise, and then see what pops up and go from there.
So this is where like the content planning throughout the year is helpful. So you have themes for every month, and then you're dividing those themes. Let's say you do weekly blog posts, you're diving deeper into some of like those keywords, like the other questions that deal with that keyword, right?
Yes.
And would
Yes.
you get more bang for your buck for that then?
Yeah, I mean, you can use google.com/trends to see where there's seasonality for certain terms. Obviously, there's like obvious ones that were related to Q4, but and like back to school and things like that. So you can put your term in there. Google doesn't track all of them, and get an idea. If you want something to rank for a specific season, you need to get it out there at least 60 days, ideally 90 days before you actually want it to be found. This does not mean it needs to be navigable on your website, but it needs to be live. So like, if you're somebody where Mother's Day is an important holiday for your business, that content needs to be published right around now. If you're somebody where Q4 or holiday gift guides is important for your business, you need to get that content probably live by July, end of August at the latest. So like that, those are the types of things you need to be thinking about, is like, this is what kind of like ramp time do I need to get this crawled by Google, right? Smaller websites, Amazon gets crawled by Google several times a day. My website probably gets crawled a couple times a month, right? Because it's smaller. Google's not going to waste a lot of crawl budget on me. So that's something to think about too.
Would you say it was 90 days? How many days ahead of time?
I like to say 90 days as ramp up time. If you have something that you want to have ranking for a specific time frame.
Yeah, like Lisa is a parenting coach, back to school September. So 90 days ahead of that, she's going to start using those keywords in her content.
Yeah, you want that content, content published. So let's say she was doing a blog post on the back to school transition, right? Which it's a nightmare. So like that content should be published beginning of summer. Doesn't have to be navigable on her site. Doesn't necessarily mean that people need to find it on her site. It needs to just be live, a live URL. And this same goes for if any of you are reusing, like, let's say you have specific offers that you run every year or specific services that you run every year or whatever it is that are time specific, do not recreate new URLs each year. Use the same one, keep it live, just remove it from your navigation. That way it builds trust and authority over time, and it's easier for people to find it in the search engines. So if like holiday gift guide, for example, or like if you have a summer event planning page or something like that, that's not time specific, or even is, but doesn't have a date attached to it, it's an event like a Cyber Monday, you can reuse that URL over and over again. Somebody's raising their hand.
Yeah, Lisa has a
Yeah.
question. Go ahead.
Wait, I mean, this may be a random question, but so I've been getting a couple of emails lately saying that Google is having a problem indexing something on my site. So
Yeah.
does that mean, what does that mean?
So that could mean a lot of different things. It could be that you have a no index tag on the site. It could be, what's your website platform?
WordPress.
WordPress. It could mean that the robots like .text file is doing something funky. If you want to email me after, I'm happy to take a look at it.
Okay.
Send me an email.
I mean, I'm redesigning a site on Squarespace with somebody else. Like it's a temporary problem, it feels like, but
Yeah. If what
So-
like did Google Search Console send you an error and say we're having?
you know what? It was so technical. I was just like, I can't even read this. I can't
It's
even
probably if
read it.
if you're moving over to WordPress, excuse me, to Squarespace, it's very
Mhm.
possible that your web designer has no indexed your WordPress site while they're moving it over, and in that case, it's just part of the design process, and I wouldn't worry. But if you can just forward the
Okay.
email,
And
and
is your email in the chat somewhere?
it will be, yeah, it's
Okay.
hello@ninagibson.co. And if it's a simple answer, I'll provide it. It could very well
Okay.
be. So,
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
welcome.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Nina. And I want to respect everyone's time. Does anyone have any last minute questions before I close out? Okay, well, this has been so helpful. I think it's definitely shed some light for all of us to, really the importance of SEO. I know you have so you're going to give us the keyword search places, right?
Yes, the PDF. Yes, I will email it to you right after this.
And
You
then
have
there's the other thing that you gave me before, which was the blog, like
the
how to
blog
write
post
an optimized blog post or something like that.
for SEO. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So those two pieces will go to you guys with the recording. So you'll have that to continue your SEO journey. And then next week, Nicole is here. She is going to be our speaker next week. We're going to talk about sales pages. So definitely invite you back. It's going to be at 11 a.m. next Thursday. So definitely join us for that brand power hour as well. So thank you so much, Nina. Thank you guys for being here. And I hope to see you next week. All right.
Thank you. Bye.